Yes, it's time for Mark Meets, and a man who came to international attention with the publication of his books, The Skeptical Environmentalist, Cool It, and False Alarm, How Climate Change Panic Costs Us Trillions, Hurts the Poor, and Fails to Fix the Planet, in which he acknowledges that climate change is real and man-made, but that efforts to mitigate it, including the race for net zero, are misguided, and that the threat of rising temperatures has been overstated. Well, he is back. Best things first, the 12 most efficient solutions for the world's poorest and our global sustainable development goal promises. Bjorn Lomborg, welcome to Mark Dolan tonight. Let's have a little background from your previous books. You acknowledge that global warming exists, so is it good or bad?
Global warming is overall bad. There are pluses and minuses. There are more minuses than pluses. That's why it's a problem.
And what is your view of the race to net zero? What do you feel about the approach of governments like the UK of getting carbon neutral as quickly as possible?
Well, first of all, there's not much of a race. I mean, a lot of people are spending a lot of money. Globally, we are spending more than $1.1 trillion every year on trying to go net zero. But the actual outcome is that we still see emissions from fossil fuels going up, not down. And yes, we have more renewable energy, but not much more. We think we have a little more. We've probably gone from about 14% up to maybe 16.5% globally. So we're doing way too little. We're basically just starting, and we're already spending huge amounts of money.
So based upon your new book, what are some of the key ways to fix the world's problems? For example, climate change.
So what we did with this new book is basically say, look, you've got to ask where you can spend money and do the most good first. So it's not a question of saying we should solve everything. Of course, in a perfect world, we would do that. But we're not in that perfect world. We're actually delivering very little. And so if we're not doing any of the things that we promised, where could we do the most good first? So we identify 12 amazing things where we, for fairly little resources, could do incredible amounts of goods. So this would be something like doing something very simple about maternal and newborn deaths. So every year, I didn't know this before we started this project together with more than 100 of the world's top economists and several years of work. Every year, about 2.3 million kids die in their first 28 days on Earth, and about 300,000 moms die. We could do something about that very, very simply. It's about getting more mothers in to give birth, mostly in low-income countries, to give birth in institutions, and have the ready remedial opportunities there. So, for instance, about 700,000 kids don't breathe when they get born. If you have this little cheap plastic mask with a hand pump, it costs maybe $65. It can save 25 lives over the next 3 years. So have those kinds of things within each one of those birth institutions. Doing that would cost in the order of $5 billion. But, and here's the kicker, it would save 166,000 moms, and it would save 1.2 million kids' lives each and every year. So for every dollar spent or for every pound spent, you would end up doing $87 or pounds worth of good. That's a fantastic investment, and it's one that you can do right now. So again, the point is not that we shouldn't do everything. We should do some smart stuff on climate. One of the smartest things is to invest a lot more in research and development into green energy. But fundamentally, we need to also remember to do all these other smart things. So we look at education and land tenure security and lots of other things.
Well, that's right. We appreciate skepticism on the show. You're skeptical about the sort of so-called climate emergency. You're skeptical about measures to tackle our emissions. You are a minority voice on this issue. What would you say to those that argue that many mainstream scientists can't be wrong?
So I don't disagree with the climate scientists. I've actually, like many, but certainly not most, read the whole UN climate panel report. I would agree to most of it. I mean, the vast majority of it.
But you don't agree with the measures, do you, Bjorn?
No, it's a question of saying, Global warming is a problem. If you read the UN Climate Panel report, and I don't recommend it, it's a very long and pretty boring report. It basically tells us this is a problem. The only climate economist to ever get the Nobel Prize in climate economics, William Nordhaus of Yale University, estimates, and many others do the same, that if we do nothing about climate, by the end of the century, it will have negative impacts that'll be equivalent to us losing about 4% of GDP. That's a problem. That's definitely a problem. It's not the end of the world. And that means we should think about this along with all the other problems. And there's something weird about the conversation that we have where everybody's saying, let's throw trillions of dollars into fixing climate,
Amen
but forgetting
to
the
that.
billions.
Bjorn, it's about proportionality. I've got to say, I read your last book, a cracking read. The next one is out. I'll be buying a copy. It is called Best Things First, the 12 most efficient solutions for the world's poorest.